An eventful week, a week of a lot of happenings in the political arena, social and economic, and the floods are here everywhere. Of course, let's be real, and with a big cast, new entries, and our usual suspects, and my former co-host, Melissa Kiplagat, is in the house tonight. Anyway, let's move on to the beautiful things. Let's start with you.
I'm Esther Nyonje.
What do you do?
I am a political analyst. I am a founder of ENA Digital Agency. I have a show that runs on YouTube. It's called the Kenya Explained show that articulates political, social, and economic, the political, social, and economic environment of the country and beyond. In summary, thank you.
That's in summary. I am Maria Nyambani Waweru. I am an author of Marriage is a Scam and Love the Original You, also an editor-in-chief of The Young magazine and a fitness person.
Okay. Karibu, Maria.
Benji Dolo needs no introduction, to be fair. I need no introduction.
I know you need no introduction, but you brought as a government, you have the yellow color. Anyway, it is you.
Actually, this is a shirt I wore when I received the president in my village in Kangundo last year.
Yes.
So I just wear it with mixed feelings because we really want to see delivery. Believe it or not, by the way, CEO, 2 years and campaign starts again. Because now we're end of 2023. So we have only 24 and 25. 26 is full campaign for 27. So there's no time.
And we're talking about campaigns. This week, JKIA, the roofs were leaking. And
neighboring countries are laughing at us.
The CS Murkomen, the transport minister, said that we blame Uhuru for poor workmanship. The runway was not well lit. And if you look at now, we are in the process of expanding the airport. What is your take of all this shebang of bad runway,
of course,
leaking roofs?
Of course, Uhuru built that particular terminal.
Yes.
And he built it in a very dramatic and chaotic manner. Because if you remember when President Uhuru came in, the first thing he did, which was very controversial, was cancel the Greenfield terminal contracts that were held by Jimmy Wanjigi.
Yes.
A lot of Kenyans don't follow this stuff in detail, but that was a big fight, a really big fight, that actually culminated in Jimmy Wanjigi supporting Honorable Raila Odinga, at some point having his house destroyed, and Jimmy Wanjigi coming out onto media and addressing the country and saying, I want to inform Kenyans that this government was actually formed in my house. I have hosted the president in my home, together with the Deputy President Ruto and Honorable Raila. And just to imagine that Uhuru has had the audacity to come and bring GSU and destroy this home, and this is the home he knows. I mean, all of this stuff was really, really crazy. And you know, the fact of the matter is that that new terminal and the new contracts and the cancellation of even the bus service at the time was all under Uhuru. What Murkomen should do as a leader, though, is not dwell on that, is take charge as a minister, you know, and maybe just mention that in passing, but take charge and do the repairs proactively and not be seen as a leader to be making excuses. Because first of all, to have leaking water in an airport is inexcusable.
Inexcusable.
To justify it and explain it is mediocrity. I like to give this example many times. You know, we have to be, and I think it's also there in the Bible, we have to be practical in a very pragmatic fashion. If I'm in a GK car, for instance, as a PS or as whatever, and I don't know Esther, but I find her giving birth on the road, you know, no, it's true. You cannot say, oh, you know, I don't have a work ticket, I don't have permit. You shelve all those things. You
and
get Esther, you take charge, you get her to the hospital immediately and get her to have a safe delivery. That's leadership. So you don't start explaining to Kenyans in the media about Uhuru and their contracts, etc. You take charge, then you can explain all those things later. But it's inexcusable for an airport to be in that shape, a new terminal. And if you follow social media, which I do, neighboring countries, specifically Uganda, Tanzania, and even Rwanda, this past week and the week before, they are openly laughing at Kenya. So something is wrong. And I talk to these people privately, publicly, and I tell them, you know, it's not enough to just defend ourselves. CEO, something is wrong. We're trending for the wrong reasons. You know, His Excellency Museveni explained only yesterday or the day before, and that was trending, that his landlocked country that gets fuel channeled through Kenya, he's looking to go elsewhere because it's inflated. The one coming from Kenya is overpriced by 59%. That's a damning statement. That's a president explaining that. And we've been asking on this show, why is fuel 217? Are you kidding me? And the explanations by Churchill do not suffice. About, by the way, CEO, and I don't mean to take up so much time. You know, I must warn Kenyans, and I have done this many a time. When a government is lazy and incompetent, you know, sometimes Kenyans go on social media, then they taunt them. Oh, we're Kenny 300. They'll put. You don't do that. No, you don't do that. They said, oh, I'm sure you'll say the conflict between Gaza and Israel. Churchill was like, eh? So he went, he's like, yeah, you know there's a conflict in, yes. Because you're talking of money. So for them, they're like, you know, it's worth the try because the return is so big. He actually said, you know, it could go to 300. Because of Gaza, I mean, it's rubbish.
Which was very nonsensical because
of course it's rubbish.
The central bank bulletin actually indicated that the dollar and the price of oil had really gone down.
Yeah.
Of course, I've been tracking it myself and providing the evidence. Of course, it's going down.
Internationally.
Yes, because of conflict between Gaza and Israel, which is not on the oil.
Yes, and it's many times it's on demand, it's on many things. So their only interest, you see, what betrays the government is they are seen to have a predetermined interest in fuel prices being high. That actually juxtaposes the government as the enemy of the people. And that's not the way to govern. The government actually should have an interest first in governing, in making life easier for Mwananchi, and you can still make money as you do your governing work. But they have it upside down. The government is first preoccupied with people in high echelons of government making money, the few out of the many, against the many. And that is immoral, that is wrong, and we must say it morning, noon, and night.
Evening. Maria.
You know, we blame Uhuru as if the government that we have right now came from nowhere, like we just elected someone from the public, yet he was in the government. He was the vice president at that time. So if he says that Uhuru is responsible for that, but he was in the government at that time, what was he doing? Where was he at that time? And why is it that when problems come, we now take it back to the former government? I feel like it's time that they own up to what they're supposed to be doing and do it, because we are not going to be hiding the shame, considering JKI is used by people internationally. So that is not a shame that we can avoid. And by mentioning the former government does not make it easier for the public to accept them and be like, okay, yeah, you are going through this because there was leadership before you, but they were in leadership. They know. So they're looking for scapegoats and maybe a funding. Like I always say, they're looking for funding or a budget somewhere. And I'm sure they'll get it.
Madam Esther, what do you think about this?
You know, I say it is such a shame to start with. Because if I move to a new area and I see these people transporting water with donkeys and using jerry cans, I will know this place does not have enough water, so I can't stay there. So imagine an investor who came into JKA at that day, a whole 20 minutes, and the lights were off. And there was no backup generator also. I mean, a critical infrastructure, in a critical infrastructure setting as an international airport, losing power, even for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, a drug dealer can sneak in drugs. In 5 minutes, a lot of things can happen. Weapon can be smuggled. So they want to say we blame the previous regime. And I say in that case, then he might be right and also wrong. Right in this sense that that's the infrastructure, the renovation of the JKA took place at Uhuru's time, and that tender was given to some Chinese dealers, costing 960 million shillings in 2021. So at this point, we should not be facing the same problems. But we are facing the same problems. And now Murkomen is in power. Fine. Blame the previous regime because the person in the previous office did shoddy work, as you say. But now you're in charge. Don't start saying, oh, this person, this person. I mean, what are you doing? Have you seen Kenyans on Twitter telling him that you are walking cute in your matching outfit and cute shoes, walking around the country, yet JKIA is in trouble. It's leaking. And you know, from the word go, there was the question about the competence of the cabinet secretaries in this regime. And now we're even seeing that their own people in the Kenya Kwanza administration attacking the same CSS. I saw Cherargei sending the videos about and castigating Murkomen. You see? So it begs the question of the competence of the CSS. We've seen attacks on Ababu Namwamba, Moses Kuria. So these people need to take charge and know that they have a country to run. And now we're looking at also our priorities. I mean, the office of the spouse of the first lady and who they receive budgets.
They have budgets. Yeah.
First daughter was there sometime. I don't know where it is right now, but now they receive budgets. But now look at JKIA. Really, this is a shame. We say shame on you. You don't get into that office and say I blame the previous person, but you're in charge. Take charge.
I think the biggest problem we have, and you put it correctly, the biggest problem we have is that Ruto's cabinet is a cabinet pulling in different directions, and they lack that what we call collective responsibility. And if you look at Murkomen, he's busy. There's an honest fight in the rift of the next supreme leader. So Cherargei is not speaking because he likes Ruto. He's trying to be the governor of the next county there. So there's a lot of attacks. People are looking for that money to steal, and everyone is just trying to get money and make ends meet. So they have lost what we call their collective responsibility to look at the work they are supposed to do. Murkomen will always fly around, launching very small projects at the behest of the biggest problems in his ministry. Ruto will tell us, someone as a president, will tell us someone has borrowed 761 times of what do you call this thing? The hustler fund, which cannot add up to the number. So people are busy doing things which are not real. People are busy talking about things which are not adding up. And I think it's high time the president to reshuffle his cabinet, basically, and get competent people in their roles.
You know,
even Uhuru did the same.
We were looking at a reshuffle, and when there was the update about he's going to release a press statement about reshuffle of the cabinet, he did not reshuffle. And there was an analogy of one lorry being carried. There were two lorries and a pipe in between. So this lorry is transporting the same things to the other lorry. So he did not reshuffle the cabinet to say, this is this one. And himself admitted that some of his CSS are incompetent. You see, started from him. So when we were looking at the reshuffle at that time, we expected him to bring new faces, more competent people. But what did he do? He changed the names of the departments and the ministries, used the same people. So there we are.
Kindiki was, wow, the Gazette notice of the increase of price of birth certificates and IDs. He revoked that, saying that it was due to public participation and it will take effect in January. That is after a public outcry on how life is already hard as it is. Yeah. Benji, I would like to hear from you on that.
CEO, I'd just like to correct you a little bit. You said that these senators, governors are chasing money to make ends meet. They're not chasing money to make ends meet.
Yes.
They're some of the highest paid public
Individuals
servants in the world.
Yeah.
True.
So they're chasing ends to meet greed. And I think that's important to underscore.
It is,
it's not to make ends meet. It's
yeah.
to meet their greed and their insatiable greed for power, for more construction of their own buildings and highways and what have you. So that's very important. I think the next thing is something that I mentioned to a CS the other day, that the president is going to need very serious rebranding. If you just look at the perception of how Ruto is just seen with the new punitive taxation and you know, the culture of passing the buck. I mean, like even Maria is saying now on this increase of, you know, tariffs and fees for passports, for ID, for marriage. Marriage certificate, I think, has gone up 10 times, from 5,000 to 50,000 to 100,000. Kenyans
If you are not married, you will not get married.
They've really taken it in a very, they look at it as done in bad taste. And so, when you come and reduce and then Itumbi runs something to say you're listening, most people see it as a gimmick. And so I just urge the government to be very cautious on the increments, because you're increasing, but where are Kenyans to get it from? Remember, in fact, I could understand the government doing that if the environment showed that there's been lots of job creation and the economy is thriving. In fact, we're in the middle of an economic catastrophe. We are in the middle of major borrowing. Can you imagine that Ruto is borrowing as much as Uhuru? I mean, that's unthinkable.
No, 10 times, actually.
Yeah, then...
You see,
I mean,
Ruto
that
is
would
borrowing.
be, if I was Ruto, that would be grounds for me to resign immediately.
He is borrowing
If
more.
I thought after 1 year that I have to borrow more, that I would resign immediately.
He's traveled in 1 year more than Kibaki traveled in 10 years.
Exactly. I mean, so everything is wrong. That's
He's
what I'm talking about
traveled more
rebranding.
than Uhuru traveled in the same span of time.
I would resign, Esther, and say, you guys don't ever call me. Like, I just want peace.
You
Can't do this.
Yeah, you saw
It's a very
Liz
serious
Truss.
thing.
Yeah.
You saw Liz Truss in
But
the
you
UK.
Exactly. I mean, because you see also, politics must not be life and death.
Sure.
I do a lot of meetings. I did run into Treasury CS Njugu Nandumu the other day, just in person. I said hello. He was from a meeting. And he just looked crestfallen. He just looked like he's from a funeral. I mean, what the heck? You know, you just wonder, see, what is happening in this country? Because, you know, usually, like in those days, you'd meet a minister and you can see, I mean, this guy looked like he's just, like he's dying. What is happening?
What's happening is...
What is happening?
In 1 quarter, if you lose 6,000 jobs from Nairobi Stock Exchange because of your high taxes. And
By the way,
yet-
I don't know if Esther, I'm addressing her because she's a political analyst like
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw a report by Bloomberg that Nairobi Stock Exchange is the worst performing stock exchange in the world.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
The worst.
In the world. Below Czechoslovakia,
No, below Malta.
below Malta, below Togo. Come
I've
on.
never understood.
What are we doing?
Maybe we
I
allow...
don't like coming on this show and becoming like emotional or angry. I mean, it's so embarrassing. What are we doing? And what is the plan? What's the game plan? That's so embarrassing.
You are lower than Togo. Esther, maybe you take it from there. We are lower than Togo. We are losing
Kenyans are
6,000
traumatized.
jobs. This year alone, we realize that we've been paying debts which exist, which does not exist.
Control of budget.
We have also learned this week that we paid money for loans we did not take to a tune of 2 billion. How do you pay the facilitation fee? You pay 2 billion facilitation fee, then the money doesn't come,
Exactly.
and you don't follow it up.
I had occasion to meet the control of budget herself, Margaret Nyakango,
Yes.
day before yesterday. She gave me an appointment, and we sat and talked. And she raised 2 issues. Number one, she said, I'm getting so many calls that I should back off from the media. But I've never looked for the media. The media look for
Looks
me.
for me, yeah.
Yeah.
She has
And
to-
I'm the control of budget. When the media calls, like Standard Group, for instance,
Yeah.
you know, I'm in a constitutional office, I'm doing my job.
Yes.
This is what I'm seeing on the... So when the media calls, you know, it's such a predicament. What do I say? Do you say, oh, CEO Standard is calling, then you say, no, I can't talk to you. What the heck? So that's number one. Number two, she was like, as I'm an accountant, so when I find the issues, like when I'm doing the numbers,
Yes.
I find allocation for salaries, and then I track,
It's triple.
or this is what I
am.
approved,
Yes.
and then I find, or even on loans, that this is what the amount is, this is what was paid, then the loan should have come to do A, B, C, D.
And the loan never
So
came.
there is no A, B, C, D, and the loan never came.
But
So-
he paid.
Exactly. So what should I, what, so what's the answer? And you're talking, for instance, say 2 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion. what do I do? And you know, I was almost at a loss for words. When I look for the PS Treasury, I say, Katibu, we need to discuss this. Yes. Or Waziri, this is what I'm saying, I'm controller. My job is to approve the money that you're spending.
Yes.
Then he doesn't return my call. He calls, he tells me, hey, I'm in State House. We can't talk. I mean,
You know,
what are Kenyans to do?
CEO,
what are Kenyans to do? Even for me on this platform, why am I on this platform?
Benji,
Let's
you already
it
here,
has
you're
not
already
got
here.
there. It does not have to get there. I mean, let me try give some hope. Because
give us some hope.
It feels like
Hope
we
is
are
for
all in a
drama?
stuck
Are we here
place.
for drama?
No, hope
This
is
is
a
our
good thing.
country.
Yeah, it's our
really-
country. But look at it this way also, that we've had a new regime just 1 year down. And he was taking over from a point where someone else had left. I don't want to start saying blaming the previous regime, but you know, when you get into office and you want to do things your way, you have to make some adjustments. And now at this point, I feel Kenyans, let's just brace ourselves for these adjustments, because in Uhuru's government, at a point, you know, we never used to pay a lot of taxes. But now the debts were being taken. We don't pay the taxes, and the debts are being taken. So we don't feel it, but in the long run, we
Esther,
could have felt it.
Are you saying that you're paying taxes and he's not taking taxes? But now he's even borrowing further.
You know the problem is, you find that this government, according to their plan of work, is they just have to introduce something. Like you see now, Kindiki was saying that it was due to public outcry. In January, it may take effect. It's just like the house levy. It was 3%, then it moved to 1.5%. All they have to do is introduce. And once they introduce, it is either take them higher or keep introducing new things. But the point is this: where is the money going to? Because KRA is not receiving the taxes that we are asked for. We as people, we are not seeing the changes that we would like to. Because we can't be in shame whereby we have, like last week we were saying Mr. Beast came and built boreholes, or our airport is crashing, or we have floods, and there was budget for floods. We can't be going through all this shame, yet we are seeing that money is being asked for. Because next year, we are sure that IDs may not be as the price they were saying of 2,000. Maybe they will start with 500, just to make you relax. But once it's introduced, it's never going back.
You know, CEO, when it comes to these documents, I also want to look at the sensitivity of the said documents. An ID, a passport, a permit. You know, these are documents that can also be used for extremist purposes. So renewing, why should you lose your ID? Then don't lose your ID. And to my first point, as I was saying, let us adjust. You know, let's adjust to this new regime.
Don't lose your IDs.
Don't lose your ID, because
but this
it
high
will cost
schoolers
you
have
1,000
finished high
shillings. They now pay 300 shillings.
These 900,000 people who did KCSE are going to apply for the IDs. With that whole amount, the government is making over $1 billion for just the high school people.
And again, as we shift now to the next topic, that's why I'm continually criticizing the methodology or the mindset. The mindset of predatory thinking, that the only way I can make money is to pounce on these Kenyans.
The government is a pack of wolves.
That's what I'm explaining.
Yeah.
You know, that's people like us who have studied and lived in other countries. Governments don't do that. They don't look at the monarchy as prey. What governments do is create an enabling environment,
yes,
and invest, and then down the road you can have harvest from that invest. Having said that, CEO, let's
move on to the
segue
next
over
topic.
to the new topic, and that is a toxic environment.
Yeah.
KRA, that is itself aggressively pursuing taxes from Kenyans. Their own employees are complaining of working in a terrible environment. And at the same time, I saw a budget shortfall from taxes day before yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, of 113 billion. Last time I was here, we isolated the taxes from fuel,
Yes.
and identified that we had a shortfall, I believe, of 17 billion.
Yes.
Again, from the Laffer curve effect, that if things are too expensive, obviously that cuts spending because where you get the money. The increases are not corresponding with incomes. So if you increase so much, people spend less, therefore you collect less taxes, so they've sent out a warning that they already have a 117 billion shortfall. What to make of it?
And they reacted, actually, what you're saying, Benji. 2 days ago, the government did what we call a supplementary budget, which cut back on expenditure on projects.
Yes.
Projects fell to around 9 billion right now.
Yes.
Which is very low. If you are looking for a country in the midterm and they want to grow and to make sure that you foster that environment for growth, then you must spend on development.
Yes.
It means that the money which you are raising can only pay salaries, and we cannot sustain even the salaries we have. That's why there's a lot of job cuts across the country because of the taxes. I think the problem we have, and we've spoken about LAFACAF so many times, that it never worked in the United States in the 80s. And they really tried and said, the more you tax people,
it actually began in 1974.
Yes. The more you tax people,
yeah, the less expenditure. Therefore, the less economic activity.
And that's very simple. Less economic growth.
Yes.
But the problem we have in the country is that we are doing this at the back end of an economic meltdown where there is nothing happening.
At all.
We're just from a drought.
Correct. Now we have floods.
And now we have floods.
And we had COVID.
And then we had COVID.
Yeah.
So you need to enable the environment for taxes to grow.
Kenya's on its knees.
Yeah.
Kenya's on its knees, and there are other issues as well. I like how you've just highlighted, CEO, the whole question of, increment, target, but the person actually doing the increasing and setting the targets themselves, there are questions around the recruitment process at KRA.
It's crazy.
KRA does not have a representative body for workers and even the working conditions. So just imagine you're a KRA employee. Your work is just to harangue and harass small businesses. Yourself, you're underpaid. You're in a toxic environment.
The rent
and you're
for
supposed
your houses have been increased.
I mean, you can just imagine this country. No wonder we have increased rate of suicide
and GBV. And
gender-based violence, because now someone leaves the office so bitter, they go home to beat their wives and children.
But
we have a real crisis in this country.
Okay, I want to put it in that those problems that you're saying are not tied down to KRA employees only or post employees only. They're tied down to everyone. I mean, in every work environment, every job has its own pressures. There is no job that does not have its own pressure. Even here, if you ask the producer or the producer or whoever, the host of this show, whoever, you have targets from your boss. So the outcry from KRA staff about poor working conditions and recruitment process and increase in house rent, it's not tied down to them only.
Esther, you see the difference?
All employees are facing the same
Esther, the
problems.
difference is, the difference with here and there is there, you are the attack dog used to squeeze Kenyans. You see, here we're in a different business here of serving news analysis, etc. So it's more painful if you have been employed as a sniper. And why I say that, CEO, is because when this issue came out on how they're raiding suitcases of visitors at the airport.
Shameful.
Then it's so shameful. So they ask you, Esther, who na perfume ngapi? I mean, I don't even know how many perfumes I have. I have many. I don't know if it's a 7, there are 19. So then they start saying, this one, you have to pay tax, etc. So I heard that they do that because they've also been given targets. And the reason you're seeing this outcry is because that is such dirty work. Just imagine your boss saying, I need you to bring me revenue from extorting tourists. I mean, can you even do that work? That's the difference.
What KRA is doing is like they are being forced to go look for tax from already overtaxed people who cannot even pay anything more than
who
they are
cannot
paying
even
right
eat.
now. Like, God forbid, if right now we get a pandemic as a country,
We're finished.
we are finished.
Because already Kenya's on, is
Because
on its knees.
already right now, we are closing businesses every day.
Yes.
Investors are moving to other countries.
Yes.
Tourism, we've killed tourism as it is.
Yes.
The fee for game parks, how much is it again?
It went up, I think, 3 times.
3 times. Imagine. Imagine.
So, and that's why, again, on social media,
Yes.
I see when you have exchanges with Rwandese, then they say, I could have fought back against you, but you're Kenyan. Your government will deal with you.
Imagine.
that.
Okay, that's
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they keep saying that. Even in Uganda.
But you know, I'm looking at it this way that things will have to change. You know,
Have to. Yes.
from the previous topic we're talking about passports. You know, in 10 years' time, the price of a passport is not going to be the same. The prices of getting into a game park will not be the same even in 5 years' time. So things go up gradually. And looking at the rate of economies, I have never seen a point where economies get to a point where they start coming down. If you talk to our older generation, they'll tell you we bought bread at 50 cents. Has bread ever come down to 50 cents
Allow me
again?
to answer
But
her.
It was 50 cents,
allow me to
and
answer
then
her.
But you know that
and then
10
it was
times
35
rice is bad.
shillings, and then 50 shillings,
allow me
and
to
then
answer.
65 shillings. So
Okay,
it's
then
going
you-
to
Allow-
We're not
allow me
even
to answer,
getting
then you can
married.
wrap up. Allow me-
We're not even going to...
Allow me to answer, then you can
higher
wrap
and
up.
Yes,
higher
yes, yes.
because new changes, there are new changes happening everywhere.
True.
There are
not
world
10 times.
forces.
But not 10
the
times.
world forces. So
Allow
this
me
is
to-
the time where
allow
we
me
are
to
going
answer.
to
10
face
times.
it.
And even in that
Okay.
answer, let me throw a challenge to
Esther,
someone like David.
So I
We've had
keep,
you.
keep
Allow
on
me-
saying, let us adjust.
Allow me to answer her.
Let us give the government time also
Allow me to answer
work.
her.
10 times,
Allow me to
Esther.
answer her.
2024, saizi tujikaze tu kidogo. 2024, let's see how things will be.
Allow me to
If
answer
things
her.
will not be
Yes,
okay,
we'll give you a
let's
chance.
meet at the
Allow me
ballot
to answer her.
in 2027.
Okay, Benji.
We had a guy called Idi Amin next
Yes.
door in Uganda.
Yes.
The famous guy who said, print money, print money. Then they said, Your Excellency, Ugandan money now has become like toilet paper. That's the finance minister. Then he said, no, you cannot abuse Ugandan money, so kill him.
He was killed. The central bank governor, actually.
And that is how the ignorant dictator Idi Amin ran down the pearl of Africa, Uganda, expelled all Asians who are the business owners, killed so many, ate human skulls and all this stuff. I wanted to explain to Esther that and I'll challenge her to do, because she's an analyst, to just sit down on her laptop and do this analysis. Stable countries like the UK, where I've been, the Netherlands, Denmark, etc. They manage inflation, manage populations, create opportunity, and things go up from bread being 2.17 pence, it goes up to 2.19 pence,
Yes.
it goes up to 2.26 pence. In the case of fuel, I remember when I moved back and I just noticed fuel. I'm the convener of the oil price advocacy campaign under Clarion. We did a lot of work that led to this ERC fuel formula that you have. I was part of that. Because I asked them, you know, fuel, like in Texas, it's $3.70, and then it's $3.12, and then it's $2.76, and then it's $2.23, like that. It's elastic, based on the market. It's not just predatory, where you keep adding, and you just want a few guys who are stealing from the poor to enrich themselves, and there's no transparency, there's no explanation, you don't even understand the
There's no
pricing.
value for money.
So I was explaining that banana republics is where you find a newspaper. Like in Uganda, a newspaper is 6,500 shillings. You know, airtime is 5,000 shillings. Airtime, the equivalent of 50 bob. And that's why I challenge someone like David Lee. After doing all the theories, going to school in Oxford, etc., we are 1 year plus in. We're in complete economic
Meltdown.
destruction, meltdown.
Yeah.
You are an expert and a PhD.
In
Kenyans
economics.
are all looking at you, and you have no support. From Kenyans, you have no support because they don't feel you have what it takes.
Okay.
The solution to protect your professional standing, your reputation, you publish, you have gone to school in the UK, you publish papers, you present papers, you resign immediately.
No wonder he's so
Or
bitter these
else-
days.
Of course, you resign immediately because, or you're going to carry this skunk for the rest of your life. That's my challenge.
I think you've tackled it well. What I wanted to say, maybe to correct about the IDs, is that IDs cannot be treated as a business.
Yeah.
Because it's what the government has a provision to provide IDs for every Kenyan who attains age of 18. It's
And
by
death
law,
certificate. And death certificate.
So those ones, you do not make money on them. Those are sacred. You cannot just, the kids who clear their schooling and all that, you are supposed to give them ID actually for free. Because that's your duty as a government to register your people, to make the physical and economic planning for the future.
And to keep registering voters
and yes,
continually, which
it's
doesn't
their
happen.
project. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been hectic and hot inside here.
Very.
Of course, your government is driving you nuts, and me as well, and I hope...
It's sickening.
Let's go to a break, Benji. Maria, take us to a break.
Yeah, it's been real and it's getting hot. I think when the government is mentioned, you'll see people shaking. Anyway, we are taking a short break and we'll be right back on Let's Be Real.
New Superstay Vinyl Ink from Maybelline, New York. Shake up your long wear with no budge vinyl color. Color lock formula. Up to 16-hour wear. New Superstay Vinyl Ink, Maybelline, New York.
It's been hot in here. Of course, we are discussing pertinent issues, and we've talked about, of course, the JKIA and the saga of leaking roofs, your taxes, and the way the government is handling you. But now, in this next segment, we are going to talk about softer things, not so hard. But before I move on, this week alone, there's a lady who disappeared, went to DCI to claim that she imported oil worth 17 billion shillings. 17 billion, a Kenyan lady, 17 billion. And she's not even 55 years of age. Yani, she goes and imports oil, a whole tanker.
One person.
One person. 17 billion shillings. That's 100,000 metric tons of oil. Na bado wako na change, anaweza nunua kitu ingine anataka. Then the Kenyans, as usual, they take her and they disappear with her and kidnap her. And the oil is discharged and the ship is allowed to sail away. What's happening here?
It's not fair to say Kenyans kidnap her.
Yes.
It's not, you know, this is a media house, and you're a very senior journalist.
Yes.
So we must handle stories with the seriousness they deserve. It's not fair to say Kenyans kidnap her. This lady was summoned to DCI headquarters, I think on instructions of CS Chirchir,
Yes.
who she had met. When she went to DCI headquarters, and sometimes I take a break from news, so I'm one of those people who didn't even know this story,
Yes.
until I was going to town the other day, and I just stopped somewhere to get, you know, the shoes cleaned, and everybody was talking about that story. That's the day she was found. And then I tweeted it, and I could just listen, you know, to what people were saying. So she went and recorded a statement, and when she was leaving, she was snatched. She was grabbed. Remember, William Ruto said, we have been living in a country under Uhuru where police squads have been kidnapping and killing Kenyans who are found in River Yala.
Yes.
So, of course, this was DCI who did that, because she was grabbed within the precincts of DCI.
So mambo ni matatu.
1
So
second.
mambo ni matatu.
That was a very reckless thing to say for
Yes.
a head of state.
Very.
Yes.
That was a very reckless,
Because anything could
extremely
happen the
reckless
next day.
So
thing
mambo
to
ni
say.
matatu.
After some days, the lady also said, yeah, I was held in a house without windows. I was asked questions about this product. Now, this story is very disturbing for many reasons. Number one, Kenyans are easy to distract, and that's wrong. And we must use media to empower and educate Kenyans. I know a mzee in Kahawa with many, many, many flats that he has built over the last more than 30 years. If that mzee passed here today, you'd think he's a janitor for this building. Not every billionaire looks like a billionaire. So let us not be ignorant saying, how does this lady look, etc. A lot of these Kikuyu women who do big business, that lady... her
Wait,
business-
stop stereotyping.
No, it's not a stereotype. You cannot tell.
The mom said she didn't know she had that much money.
Yes, a lot of them are not. A lot of them are not. A lot of them are not. They're not loud. They're not showy. They're very private. In fact, I have a friend of mine who told me, you know, again from that same community, a lot of us, you can be building flats and your husband doesn't even know. So let us not be distracted by nonsense. The truth of the matter is that such an import had the opportunity to bring down the prices. it looks like this product was confiscated. So
Actually
that's
stolen.
major theft.
Stolen.
Yeah, it's so stolen, basically, and it's for a lot of money. And now the distraction is, you know, who is the person behind this woman? I don't think that is as important as the legitimacy of the product, because what this does, CEO, is show that the government seems to, again, to have a predetermined agenda to use fuel to extort money. Because she could have sold this product, for instance, at 182 and made money still, and made a profit.
Yeah.
So how cartels work is it's not a free market. So the minister is trying to control the import so that the price is an artificial price. This is a very big problem. It's a problem that needs to be addressed through the media, through the courts, through the streets, through anywhere. And I think that's why you saw the dialogue committee falling into disarray yesterday and the day before, because the Raila side, the Kalonzo side, quickly said, we should not agree to anything if it does not include
Cost of living.
cost of living, particularly fuel prices. And if I was Raila, if I had that kind of following, nothing could move me an inch from that position. Nothing. Not a bribe, not a bullet, not anything. I would rather die fighting for that. For millions of Kenyans, for majority of Kenyans, than live under that kind of oppression.
So Benji, thank you. I'll go to Esther first, and then I come to Maria. The G2G oil. Raila revealed a lot of stuff about this government oil, government to government oil scandal or scam. What is your take?
First of all, to say I'm so tired. I'm so tired of listening to these scandals, because I even didn't know about, like Benji said, he didn't know about this woman's story. I even had heard about it recently. So I've been trying to catch up on it here and there. But there's so many things about this scandal that is just really fishy. Because you've talked about the government-to-government oil deal that was introduced by the Kenya Kwanza regime under President Ruto. Because Uhuru used to use the open tender system where people could bid for the prices and sell the fuel. But now he gets into a contract with three companies in the Gulf states, specifically 3 Gulf companies. The deputy president said that this deal was going to lower the dollar, the shilling against the dollar,
rate.
the exchange rate, yes. At that time, the dollar was at 120. Right now, it's hitting 160, going higher. So they brought the promises about the government-to-government oil deal. There were promises about the dollar going down, the fuel prices being stabilized. But look at where we are. It's the opposite of everything. And then the government-to-government oil deal has very scanty information. I don't even know if the Treasury has a clear report about this government-to-government oil deal. And now look at one woman claiming 17 billion, 100,000 tons of oil. And this is a commodity that runs the economy of the whole country. So you look at it and you ask yourself, at whose expense are these things going on? There's a back and forth between the KPA, between the IPRA, between the CS of Energy. There is no clear information. And then Raila comes to say that Kenya never signed any deal with the Saudi Arabian government. And looking at Anne, one of the companies she dealt with there, she was working with there was Aramco, which was one of the companies that the government had also signed a deal with. So I'm very confused.
And she's buying it cheaper than the
She's buying
government.
it cheaper, you see? And then you see, as much as Raila comes to tell us that he gave a statement yesterday about there was no government oil deal, there are fishy dealings, we need the prices of fuel to go down. You know, I even don't know who to believe right now, because you don't know who is saying the truth, you don't know who is not saying the truth. And it's at the expense of the Kenyan people. The prices of fuel are going higher and higher every day. The international prices have stabilized, but Kenya is still at the same place. Uganda is pulling out from getting oil from us now.
And you have a whole pipeline to cater for them.
Imagine.
Okay.
Maria?
When I look at the story of this lady, first of all, are we safe? Because if whatever she was doing was going to be helpful, are we safe? But then again, it could be that it's a rival between her and the government in some case, because the government is trying so hard to hide its steps. Yeah. But then again, right now we are listening to Raila when he tells us everything that he says. But if right now, same Kenyans were given the same opportunity they were given earlier, Raila and Ruto, they will still go to Ruto, because Raila has been here speaking for so many campaigns, like he's been trying to be president for so long. And once he's not president, he reveals an information, he's a good person. After that, someone is campaigning against him, he is not a good person again.
Because this is a broadcast and there are so many watching, allow me to teach Maria some politics. Yeah. Because there's, how she's speaking is how many are thinking. So in politics, and you saw this with Hillary Clinton, you have something called a polarizing figure. Yes. You also have the same now with Donald Trump. Raila Odinga, and he's been my boss before, is a what you call a polarizing figure. This information is very valuable information. Right now, it is being, I've seen a hashtag trending this morning that I've opposed. This information will be opposed and doubted and discredited only because of where it's coming from.
Yeah.
True.
And so this is where strategy comes into play. I've said this before, officially, privately, publicly. Raila is a polarizing figure for many reasons, including the 82 coup. Suffice to say, because Kriegler said it, in all probability, and I'm being very responsible on air, Raila already won the election in 2007. That is years ago. In fact, the president today is like his son. The president was Raila's underling. Raila was his boss. It tells you a lot that William Ruto could just on first touch, first try, become president. Therefore, it is not even strategic for Raila to be the one releasing this information.
Very true.
What Raila needs to do is, because he has the intelligence, the machinery, the gravitas, etc., and he's an old man now, is get the information, mentor and nurture your younger people, give them this information, equip them, and let them run with it. Even now, Raila needs to endorse somebody for 2027. If he does that, you shall remember my words. If Raila endorsed somebody in 2017 and a NASA, that thing would have been finished in 2 minutes.
Yeah, because
and that's how I knew that even though the system was against the deputy president, I wore this shirt and supported Ruto. I knew he'd win, and I'm so loud, and I said it everywhere. Under all circumstances.
So can you should take responsibility for what is happening to us, Benji.
Yes.
I do, and that's why
You should take
democracy,
responsibility.
CEO,
Yes.
I do, in the sense that in a democracy,
Yes.
we didn't elect William Ruto to oppress us. Are you understanding?
Yes.
Therefore, I cannot, as his supporter, then say, because I supported him, let me keep quiet or let me further the agenda of destruction. No. In a democracy, I'm the first one to say, I supported the president, we have expectations of the president, and where he's taking us is wrong.
a ditch.
That is democracy.
Are you admitting that you elected him because of his PR?
Because he's smart,
Yeah.
because he's smart, Uhuru is one who had a lot of PR. Mashati. Uhuru had a lot of PR.
Namashati.
I thought that William's ambition, aggression, and energy, those three things, just the way he is as a person. I mean, even now, to be honest, the president is everywhere. It's actually shocking. The other day, I thought...
No, he's not everywhere, Benji.
The other day, I thought...
He's always abroad, but visits Kenya occasionally.
I honestly saw Ruto
leaving
in
us.
either London or Belarus.
That's what I'm telling you.
The other day, I saw
Saudi
Ruto...
Arabia.
He's
One
in
second.
Saudi Arabia.
He's a tourist
The other
in
day,
the
the
country.
president-
Let me
Yeah.
make my point. The other day, I saw Ruto, I think in London or Belarus. And then I actually thought something was wrong because he was in Belarus. And then when I switched on the TV at around 1 o'clock, he was in a church in Kapsabet. So he had come at night. I saw him, it was on a Saturday, he was in Belarus. Then I think he arrived at 6 in the morning and immediately choppered to Kapsabet where he was in a church.
Yeah.
It was shocking. I mean, how can someone like that be failing? I don't understand. Something is very wrong. And he is failing.
Maria.
Wow, let's go on a lighter note now. Okay, it's not light because it's a human interest, and it's very sad that up to now, gender-based violence is still a topic we talk about. And study shows that it affects more women than men by 40%. And recently there was a man who killed his brother's wife and children and ran away. And also there's the story of Avril and J Blessing. Like, where are we headed to? Okay, I know we are going to say we are depressed as a country, but I also feel like gender-based violence is not something that we should be talking about
And Mutumishi.
over and over and over again.
If you'll allow me, I'll just do this in like literally 1 or 2 sentences. And I say this a lot. One of the biggest evidences of a broken economy, and people never really link this, is broken families.
True.
People never really link. You hear people saying, things are so bad, things are so bad, things are so expensive. But you never hear experts linking the inability of a man to provide, to lead his family, to pay school fees, to pay rent on time, to provide for his wife, and how that causes his wife to see him as an inferior man, as a man who can't provide, and the pressures that therefore put on men, who most of them end up in burdens, drinking and taking drugs, and then take out that pressure on innocent children and their spouses, and that is a sure recipe to break and destroy families. So many families today are just unable to make ends meet, are just at their wits' end on what to do. You saw a bill the other day, CEO, that mandated, and I'm one of the ones who began that discussion actually here at KTN, when Jeff used to be here at KTN, when the bench was at KTN, and I talked about the security sector, the informal security sector, where a lot of Kenyans are gate guards, the ones who just open the gate and salute, and open the gate and salute. And so the new requirement is that these guys earn at least 30,000 shillings, and it's in that we discovered some earn as little as 5,000 shillings. You're paying rent 2,000 at Tin Shack. You have to travel to work, and you have a family at home. I mean,
And
you
dedication.
cannot explain what these men go through. They earn 5,000 shillings a month. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's true. And it's a representation of a big cosm of the Kenyan populace. And so one of the evidences of this is gender-based violence. When you look at cause and effect, when you look at underlying causes, is a broken economy. A broken economy is not just bad numbers on the Nairobi Stock Exchange.
True.
A broken economy is so many broken homes
And the social
broken
setup also.
families, and the destruction in the social strata.
Yeah, I want to agree with Benji.
Thanks.
Because during the COVID-19, when we were confined in our houses, we couldn't go to work, we couldn't go to church and socialize. There was also an increased number of gender-based violence. People were fighting. And it's because people were stressed. So I want to also attribute it to stress.
Yes.
And it's not new. It's been written. It's out there that the way you were saying that people don't know. They know. Economists have also found the correlation between the economy affecting the social setups and the mental health of people, because now looking at Kenya, even right now, everyone is so aggressive and angry. They say that if even in there was a case in a matatu somewhere, someone was thrown outside because he couldn't pay 20 shillings or 10 shillings. So people are so agitated and aggressive and irritant because of what's happening. The prices of fuel are high. People can't afford things. They're thinking of how they're going to adjust, and now it leads to GBV. And people who are going to be affected most are women, because women are vulnerable, and children. So that's why we are seeing these cases left, right, and center. But now we don't have to sit back and say we are there and we can't do nothing. We can do a lot. First, in any social setup, if we see the red flag where there is GBV, if you see that red flag, then walk out. Don't stay in a toxic environment that you saw the first sign of GBV and you're still staying. Walk out, save yourself. We should also be aware of our mental health, the status of our mental health. Know that it's a thing. Depression is real. Suicide is real. These things are affecting us. So let us stay woke and be aware of that. I know therapy is very expensive, because if you can afford therapy, people go for therapy. It helps. But if you can't afford therapy, someone in the village, then I don't know what they do. They talk to people.
You're so eloquent, Esther, and I always tell people, therapy might be 3,000 a session, 5,000 a session. You cannot compare the cost of therapy against the cost of losing a family or the cost of losing a life. So always try to do 4 sessions, budget your 12,000 shillings, compared to somebody killing themselves.
It is an elitist thought, because like this person who killed his brother because of a piece of land, do they even know what therapy is? Do you know therapy is a new generation coping mechanism?
True.
But if you go to the village, talk to our aunties, our old aunties and uncles about therapy, and then the previous generation was raised knowing that people are supposed to keep quiet about.
But I was just doing the cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah.
That you can imagine if 4 sessions could help CEO versus him thinking of killing himself. Therapy is so, we should raise the awareness on therapy.
Sure,
therapy is
that's
everything. It's just so valuable because you can actually keep your family together. I was giving the CEO the example of a lawyer friend of mine that we do this with, who was doing a divorce during COVID. And it was a very nasty divorce. It was a very simple divorce. And basically, the guy lost his job because of COVID. And then the wife was just so brutal and so harsh. And she just kept telling him, siwezi kuwa na mwanaume hana pesa. You don't have a job. Tugawane vitu tuachane. And it sounds like a joke. I mean, even when the lawyer was, he took the call and I was with him after a show. And I was like, wow, that's so unbelievable. But it's so real. That's why we're in media, to tell people, the society, what's happening.
And when I was talking about,
it's so real.
You want to go?
Can we also embrace the point whereby sometimes we can say it's the economy and we can say it's all this, but this generation also do not know how to handle their anger.
Exactly.
Like, anger management is not something that our generation is so good at. Like, they burst out on everything. And you know, nowadays kids are raised with instant gratification. Yeah. So we are all microwaves, so it's there and then. So the point that we don't even tell our children no, that also brings about, that's why you'll say that this woman came and became ballistic because of food or because of something, because she's not used to being told no.
Yes.
And this man does not know how to handle.
You're right.
Like, sometimes let's go to the roots, even parenting.
Yeah.
And also the family setup. You grew up in a violent home. Now you are here, you're supposed to raise a home that is calm and nice. It's going to be hard. And the trauma bonding kind of relationship whereby I came from a trauma home, you came from a trauma home. Now we're bonding. Then we get home, we start fighting.
Exactly.
There's so many reasons that bring
I tell
about
my person,
GBV,
learn to say no.
But sometimes it's good for us to bring out these conversations. Like, yes, we know there is depression. Yes, we know there's stress. But we also should embrace the fact that anger management is something that we should know. Raise our kids to understand that no is also an answer. Let's also know that we don't get everything we want. Like, it's not what you... Everyone is going through hardship in economies, but not all marriages are breaking. Not everyone is being beaten by their husbands, because everyone is going through the same problems. So if we keep encouraging them by telling them the economies are hard now, you get angry.
And now to the solution also, as Benji has said, let us create awareness on therapy. Not just therapy. Mental health should be an issue. Mental health should not be stigmatized.
Correct.
Because when you look at depression, this is a new era. This is a new generation. Like I said, our previous generation were raised keeping quiet about stuff. They were raised not talking, not being expressive. But now we have shifted to a new generation where people are so opinionated. They want things fast. So let us prioritize mental health. Make it even a topic in schools. I'm not conversant with CBC, but I hope CBC has topics and subjects on mental health to know how people are going to deal with depression, suicide, and all that encompasses mental health.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, ladies and gentlemen, but I think what we need to understand is that not that the old people were quiet, is that because there was a proper parenting method. Those older people had linkages, you had an uncle to tell you what to do. There were specific roles for specific people in your life. Today, the kids are basically raised by either television or a nanny who you change every quarter. The parenting of nowadays has really changed, and most of the people who are getting into adulthood today have suffered absent parenting for a very long time. Because your father, your mother is working, they come in at night or in the morning when you wake up, they have gone.
True.
So there's no parenting in between. So these guys who are the millennials that's where we have all this. That's why you see that gratification. Because the parents are not there. They leave for you money, they leave for you food, they leave for you. Everything is there instant. So
And you know you are raised by society. Nowadays, if a society tries to raise someone's child,
it's a
they are
problem.
opposed. They're
So,
told,
but-
I carried the child 9 months, as if we are the only ones who carry them 9 months.
Let me buttress her point just very slightly.
Yes.
Esther's point is, and I've really gotten it, while I hear you, CEO, you know, in the past, there was more shame than today.
Yes.
That's what she's trying to
Exactly.
express. It was what you call a reticent society. I was an activist for many years, and I remember coming across a situation from, I think it was Kwale or Kilifi, where a young girl says that my uncle touches me. Then the mother says,
Nyamaza.
keep quiet.
Usiseme.
Usiongee mambo ya watu wazima, and then utatuletea aibu. If your uncle touches you, keep it as a secret. Don't tell anybody. And that is how abuse and impunity festers in the community. Because they were more concerned on, okay, there's this abuse going on. In fact, even again, sorry to go back to Central, they say that amutumia etago mutumia nekutumia. If your husband has come na mekuchapa slap, hiyo siku itakwenda kutangaza ukiambia watu, mwelewe tu ako na stress and keep it quiet. So, in that culture of keeping things quiet is where now the trauma manifests itself by growing, by expanding, by it being carried, and then that person becoming a serial killer, a serial abuser. You talked about the thing of Jay Blessing. I mean, I saw something on social media that gives, I think he's got like 5 baby mamas, and all of them have any number of complaints and whatnot. So to me, that just tells me automatically, every problem I keep saying comes from childhood. That just tells me a guy like that, doing stuff like that, he wasn't raised well. You cannot tell me, you cannot tell me he had a good father figure, a mentor as a man. I mean, one has a bandage, another one is saying she was slapped, her ear doesn't work anymore. Come on. Which man behaves that way? Which man behaves that way?
To add on my point,
You know, I don't want to talk about the blessing because he's my friend.
I didn't even know him. I've never met him. I don't know him, but it's my job to talk about society.
No, it's correct. Yes.
stigmatizing mental health, they were told to keep quiet. And also, if you showed any signs of being mentally disturbed, you would quickly be branded as a mad person. But you know, many people have gone through depression and they have gone for medication. Many people have had cases like psychosis and mental disturbance, bipolarism. They have gone to the facilities and they have received the medication and they are now stable. So as much as we're saying don't keep quiet about it, yes, but also let us just end the stigma about mental health. And about that Jay Blessing thing is that, like at the beginning I also said that when you see the red flag,
Get out.
just run.
Get
Because
out.
you know, when Maxine, coming to Maxine and Assad Han, the neighbors kept on
Wahome.
saying,
Maxine Wahome.
the neighbors kept on saying that these people used to fight.
Yes, it's true.
So you want to say that, oh, we are fighting and making up, fighting and
Exactly.
making up.
Toxic.
But one day you won't make up.
Toxic.
One day you will be fighting
hanging
like
his
usually
clothes.
fight, and the next thing you see is a knife, throw at them, and they die. You didn't mean to
Murder.
kill them,
Imagine
but
even
you
living
see.
with that, yeah.
So when you see the red flag, when you see the first sign of GBV, just whether it's a man or a woman, not just women only, but whether it's a man or a woman, that first sign, that first red flag that you know about is a sign for you.
You find them hanging their clothes with swollen eyes.
You see? And now there's also a story about, if I can translate.
Yes.
There's a story about an unsung hero. There's a Tana woman river who swam to give birth. And, you know, I asked myself, how prepared are we first for these floods? Because I saw Sakaja make some boats and social media, we kept laughing at him. But
No,
imagine if
Sakaja
that boat was at Tana River, it could have helped the woman.
Why
Absolutely.
is it not there, actually?
And also brings me to the question about preparedness. I thought county governments have the budgets for response for drought and calamities like that. Benji?
They do, but the management, I think you've seen the story on Kilifi County where
My
Amason
good
Kingi
friend,
was.
yeah,
Yeah, 140 billion, not much to show
Disappeared.
for it.
yeah.
So governors are just becoming instant billionaires. It's really wrong. We have no sense of accountability. I keep saying, and I keep carrying the constitution. The constitution of Kenya that we passed in 2010, it can really sort us out. But people are reluctant to implement it.
Chapter
Now we are
6.
going to national dialogue.
No,
And we
chapter
haven't
6.
implemented the constitution.
Yes, so maybe as we're talking about this lady from Tana River, the woman from Tana River, one of the things that media is doing a disservice, and I'm in the media as well, in this terrible economic climate and joblessness and all the chaos that we have in the education sector and the food insecurity and the drought spells, etc., CEO, it behooves us to go back to a message that Mwai Kibaki talked about when he was planning minister, way before he became opposition leader, many decades before he became a president, and that is the issue of family planning. I just feel that we handle it so casually. Kenya already has 52 million people, half of who are sleeping hungry. A woman is swimming to a hospital without oxygen, without electricity, without nurses, without doctors, without painkillers. We cannot just wish that issue away and just keep telling our people, ukizaa tutawapea pesa. Mimi ni governor, ukizaa nitawakupea ndama ya ng'ombe. We have a problem with our entire societal structure, and let us also get back on the message of family planning. We have so many poor Kenyans just having 8 children that they cannot care for.
But how
I
can
have
we
this
control
discussion
that?
everywhere.
How can we? I've seen Esther Passaris try to spread the message about family planning.
No, it's
Don't
just
have
awareness,
kids. Yeah,
Esther.
it's very true. It's very true. But how do you impart that into the system? I'm aware in Japan, people are allowed to have 2 kids. If you have more than 2 kids, you pay for them, or I don't know what can happen.
We don't want to
but the law
penalize.
says
We don't want to penalize. I had an employee of mine, maybe I shouldn't say he's from Bungoma, and he has many. And I asked him one day, I mean, this is a few years back, before I was a parent myself. And one day I asked him, because I like to talk to people, even my workers, and I asked him, don't you see your boss hata hana watoto? And he told me, you know, that's such a good point. Hakuna mtu amewahi kuniambia. They just grow in the village. And he started, I think when he was in high school, he had a daughter, then another one, then a son, etc. It's, even as you talk about mental health and parental care, it is not responsible to have 5 baby mamas, to have 15 children, etc. And we must find, that's why I talk about those of us in the media. You must find a way to get this information out, because we need to also be focused on,
Benji,
for
are you-
instance,
are you
technology,
forgetting politics?
innovation. No, am I going to politics?
Are you forgetting that why people are having kids is political? Because the tribes are fighting.
Yeah, but that's a 17th century discussion. Assembling of tribes, like we want to have more Luos. So, CEO, I'm not going to go that low. I don't know what tribe Esther is. I met her today. I have no idea. And I have no interest. She's just a good Kenyan. We must get away. I really don't know which tribe she is. I think she's married to a Kikuyu. We have to get out of that thing. It's so 17th century.
That's why
we
your
want to have
politician-
our warriors or our voters.
That's why your politicians are busy
No.
giving those rebates to them.
But what Benji is saying,
Yeah, what I'm saying is very deep.
It sounds
It's very
it sounds very thoughtful, but how practical is it?
philosophical. It's just
How are we going to control a population in this Kenyan society to control the number of the offspring that they're raising?
by doing campaigns.
you
By
guys,
raising awareness.
you guys have thought.
There's a lot of ignorance.
I've thought of this woman as someone who has so many children.
I
But
just give the example.
This woman could be trying to have that child, then
For the
she
first
gets
time.
pregnant for the first time, and that is the situation she was going through. That is a woman, maybe, this is my first child, and you know how precious that is, like I'm to be called a mom, the feeling,
The reality
the
here
joy.
also, Maria.
Now, she swam to go get a child.
reality also-
My problem is one, if today was an election, would the ballot boxes have swum to that place
Maria,
to vote?
Maria,
Good
while this
point.
lady was pregnant for 9 months, she
The rain
still
was
found
not there.
herself. She still found herself in a flood-prone area. I don't see a man next to her taking her to the hospital.
The man can't
she was
swim.
literally alone.
She had an early delivery.
The man can't swim.
The man can't swim.
She had an early- but we also look at, as much as we're looking at that aspect, we also look at
She was alone.
responsiveness, the flood responsiveness that's
I
county
agree. See,
governments
That
have.
woman is
Because
a hero, by the
do
way.
we have a
Yeah.
tall number?
She is a hero.
A tall number that we can call anytime in case of an emergency because we are experiencing
Does the
floods.
Do we
emergency
have
number even work?
network?
Does it even
Does the
work?
emergency number that
network?
Omtata and I went to court for even work? So there are so many, and again, that's why I thought a young president like Ruto, there are a lot of basics that they could have fixed.
Yes.
There are a lot of basics they could have fixed
And
for all the
that
money being
begs
borrowed.
the same question. There are floods right now. If this rain would have come last year when we had the election, would have the ballot boxes been there?
They would have reached.
They would have been there. The hospitals would be made, the lights would be there, because at that time, the government knew what it wanted. At this time,
So keep
they
them in
don't
check,
care about
yeah.
that woman who is trying to save a child. Mind you, let me tell you, me being a mom, I know how it feels to hold that child in your arms. I know the feeling of carrying pregnancy to term and trying to save that child. And let me tell you, that woman is a hero. And I wish she got help. And I don't know why she was alone. But I know maybe motherly instinct could have told her, now you save your life and your child's life to do that. Because we can't assume she had so many kids. At this point, for her to have gone through all that, she's a hero.
Yeah.
Like,
I think what has happened is there's a book I like referring to. I think everyone here has read Ngugi wa Thiong'o's The Wizard of the Crow, and many other books. Miriam Abbas, So Long a Letter. If you read Busi Emecheta's book, if you read Roy Arundhati's The God of Small Things, women have always been at the center of trying to succeed. Like this woman, her story is well told in very many African books and even Indian books of women in the struggle, in poverty, trying to raise a family from nowhere. And I think what this tells us is that what was in the 1960s, when we were writing session paper number 10, is still with us in 2023.
Imagine.
Where we said we'll fight ignorance,
Poverty,
poverty,
disease.
and disease.
Yes.
We're still there.
We are still fighting the same things.
As if Jomo Kenyatta was president.
Yes, 60
Shame.
years later.
Shame.
That's my problem.
Shame.
That we wrote this thing in 1965 and we said we'll eradicate this
And Singapore used it and implemented
and
it.
implemented it.
Yeah.
Yet now, our women are still swimming
Swimming
across
to go give birth.
crocodile-infested rivers to go and give birth.
I surrender.
Imagine. Imagine. That
It is
very
total
true.
madness.
Shame.
It is not even the county government only. It is us as a people to actually look in the mirror and ask ourselves, is this how we want to live?
True.
Is this how we want to conduct our affairs and businesses? Is this how our country should be run?
See, a friend of mine who's a politician, he has since passed on. He told me, Benji, because he follows a lot of what we do,
Yes.
you know, in this advocacy. He told me, Benji, things are bad. And him himself was an elected politician. He told me one day, Kenyans will just stand up, look in the mirror and say, we cannot live like this anymore.
Yeah,
Too many things are wrong.
Yeah.
He told me, well, I don't know when that day will be, and he has since died. He told me, one day, Wakenya watasema tu, we can't just live
We
like
can't live
this
like this.
anymore.
I feel like we are close to that. I'm praying
We
that
should get
we
there.
should
Because
be close
everyone,
to that.
there's not one person I meet, not even a person in government. I mean, maybe there are a few crazy ones. I don't want to say Itumbi. But even the ones in government, there's just this foreboding feeling like, what? Kuna mahali vitu hazijaenda sawa.
Nkitaumana.
na kinaweza kuumana.
Yes,
We are
kitaumana.
close.
Because
We are
if you're
close.
taking loans of billions of dollars and the average person analala njaa,
It's madness.
it's a complete disconnect.
Yes. And you are borrowing every day.
And you're borrowing, I don't know how many hundreds of millions every day.
And you are making the life of this average person harder.
Like now, yesterday I saw they kicked out 67 police officers. Those are frustrated men with firearms training.
They will be robbing people in the street.
Yeah, those are new robbers that they just recruited.
Oh no.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we end it there.
As we end it there,
Yes.
we planted trees.
Yes.
I just hope that
Yeah.
there was no scam behind the tree planting.
Oh, no, but it was not 15 million trees anyway. But we planted
The
Yes,
goal,
it's
the
me, I
goal
need
is
a
15
fruit tree for my
million.
child.
I just hope there was no
For me.
business behind there, like CG carbon credits are being paid, etc. I love tree planting. I did plant trees.
I also
Let me
planted.
remind everyone that after the rains, remember to water the tree. It takes time.
Yeah, the
Chota
trees.
maji because they
Mwagilia.
die.
Yeah, it dies.
Yeah, then a Kenya of many trees is a good Kenya. Let's care for one another. Like Esther and Maria have just been trying to point out, we need a better society, better health, mental health care, better health care itself, and just kind of like more kindness to one another.
Let's be
There's
kind.
a lot of anger and cruelty. Let's make it a better country. And of course, let's always be real.
Let's keep it real. Eh?
Let's keep it real. Always.